When COVID shut down schools in 2020, parents were desperate for alternatives. This explains why Google searches for the term microschools skyrocketed. But here's what's fascinating. Even though schools reopened a while ago, even more people are searching for microschools today. Why? I've spent the last few months deep diving into this movement, and what I've found is pretty remarkable. There are roughly 95,000 microschools serving 1.5 million children in America right now. Most are operating without traditional school licenses, and many don't even have certified teachers. And it's completely legal. How? That's what we're going to explore today. I actually stumbled into this world by accident. I was helping a teacher friend market her tutoring center when she mentioned that she actually makes most of her money from homeschooling. Homeschooling parents were paying her to teach their kids. This was a new concept for me, so I started doing some research. That's when I discovered she had unknowingly built what's now called a microschool. As someone who's always felt like there has to be a better approach to education, I started digging. And once I started, I couldn't stop. What I first thought was an interesting idea has turned out to be the biggest education revolution in modern history. First, what is a microschool? We should probably look at an example. Here's Kelly Smith of Prenda, one of the largest microschool networks, talking about what makes this approach work.
A microschool is a group of up to 10 kids meeting in an informal space and taking ownership of their own learning.
It's really the sweet spot where you get the social interaction that you get in a traditional public school, but you get the individualized, personalized aspect that you want when you're homeschooling your kids.
As you can see, many microschools just operate out of someone's home. In this case, we're in Becca's house, and she serves as what's called a learning guide.
Because instead of being the one transmitting information, their role really is to help these young people develop into learners.
This philosophy, where adults guide rather than lecture, is central to the microschool model. But that's just one example. Microschools can look completely different from each other. While many do operate in homes, churches, and community centers, others, like Alpha School in Texas, look more like a communal workplace. And like many microschools, they're challenging our assumptions about how schools should work. For starters, they're using AI to teach traditional academics. But because these AI programs can meet students where they're at, similar to how a one-on-one tutor would, they're actually able to learn everything they would in a full school day in only 2 hours. In fact, the average student at Alpha School advances one letter grade every 80 days, and their standardized test scores are in the 90th percentile across the board. But here's the most exciting part. Because they're able to finish their academics in the first 2 hours of the day, it frees up the rest of the day for them to pursue their own interests and learn life skills. They might be learning cooking, or playing sports, or learning how to run a business. And they're doing it with each other, and they're just learning the kinds of skills you really need to be a successful, happy human.
This is called our check chart. We have academic topics, but we also have life skills.
When I saw that clip last year, I immediately sent it to my family, most of whom are teachers. It just made so much sense to me. However, some people have the complete opposite reaction. Just look at the Reddit post in response to that clip. And that's what's so fascinating about microschools. They're all different. Some of them have no screens at all, just pure hands-on learning. For example, something called forest schools has been growing rapidly. This kind of microschool focuses entirely on outdoor education. And while the kids might look like they're just playing, there's actually a deeper philosophy at work here.
It's because something they're interested in, not because they're being told that they have to be interested in it. And these kids have this opportunity to just be responsible to themselves.
Now, for all their differences, microschools do tend to share some common traits. They have small class sizes, usually with mixed age groups. They tend to emphasize project-based and student-directed learning. They tend not to have homework, not to have tests, and most of them don't even have grades. And this experimental approach isn't just happening at a few isolated schools. Networks of schools, like Acton Academy, are proving that these ideas can work at scale. Just listen to their director explain the impact.
We get to see young people who love going to school, who are experiencing real-world experiences that actually matter.
But what really made me pause was this realization. We're watching thousands of individual experiments in education running simultaneously. No waiting for approval from above. These educators are just trying things. But why are people still looking for alternatives to traditional education, even after the pandemic? While trying to learn more, I kept coming back to this TED Talk by Sir Ken Robinson. It's actually the most viewed TED Talk of all time.
If you're not prepared to be wrong, you will never come up with anything original. And we're now running national education systems where mistakes are the worst thing you can make. And the result is that we are educating people out of their creative capacities. I believe this passionately, that we don't grow into creativity, we grow out of it. Or rather, we get educated out of it.
Then in 2020, when schools shut down during the pandemic, Robinson gave what would be his final talk. He saw this disruption as an opportunity.
You know, lots of people have been spending time at home, learning with their children with their peer groups. The most successful examples are where parents haven't felt the need to replicate school. There's a big difference between learning, education, and school. Learning is the most natural process in the world. The problem is not teachers, it's not kids, it's not families, it's how we do school. Real social change comes from the ground up through people cultivating the grassroots.
When Sir Ken Robinson gave that talk, the idea he described was just starting to gain momentum. Fast forward a few years, and the growth is staggering. For example, one Microschool network, Acton Academy, has created a model that other educators can license and replicate in their own communities. As of 2022, they had 8,000 applications from parents wanting to start their own Acton Microschool.
And these are parents who just want to build something for their families and their community.
But what's really interesting is why parents are drawn to this approach.
There's just something about the human spirit that's drawn to setting children free to work hard and make hard decisions and learn how to learn so that they can be free in this world that we don't really know what it's going to look like.
Keep in mind, this is just one of the Microschool networks, and most microschools operate independently. And that raises the question, how are these microschools popping up so fast? Doesn't it take years to get all the licensing and certifications you need to start a school? Well, that's where it gets really interesting. Most microschools aren't technically schools, at least not in the eyes of the law. They're operating as homeschooling support centers or learning pods. In most cases, the parents have gone through the process to officially homeschool their child, and therefore are legally responsible for their education, meaning there are no licensing requirements for the schools or teachers. And here's what's fascinating. Instead of cracking down, most states are embracing this movement. Since 2020, at least 10 states have reduced regulations around homeschooling. Florida and Utah, for example, have completely removed zoning restrictions for microschools. And 29 states now offer some form of funding that parents can use for microschools. This is all happening so fast, and it's in large part due to these networks that are forming to help the growth of microschools. One of the biggest resources is the National Microschooling Center. They're actually based here in Las Vegas, where I am, and they help people start and grow their microschool.
I didn't realize the change it would make for our whole family when my kid came home from school excited to go back the next day. When all of a sudden our dinner conversations were like, hey, this happened today and this happened, and it wasn't trying to pull teeth, getting words out of them, right?
And her experience is not unusual. As Ashley goes on to say, the reason microschools are spreading so rapidly is because parents are seeing this profound change in their children.
People are seeing that. They see this and they say, hey, help me find an option because I want this for my kid.
This isn't just an interesting experiment anymore, it's a movement. And while most people still haven't heard of microschools, they will soon. I'm not sure if you're as excited as I am about this movement, but I truly believe in it, and I want to do whatever I can to help it grow. As a digital marketer, I'm just hoping I can help these founders, most of whom are teachers first and entrepreneurs second. If you want to come along for the journey, subscribe, see where it goes. We're just getting started.